Setting up a viable vaccine manufacturing network in Africa should first of all begin with realistic appraisal of the feasibility of such venture, making informed decisions on undertaking the process and making a firm, unqualified commitment to follow through the process. Why am I coming from this way? You understand, you find out that in the frenzy of the moment, so many people came forward that they want to start, many countries and organizations want to start vaccine manufacturing, local vaccine manufacturing in Africa, which is a welcome development. But a critical appraisal of all these intended interventions, you find out that many have not thought it through, because vaccine manufacturing, we all admit, is very complicated. It's a very complex process. It goes beyond putting up the building. For example, how many of these organizations, these countries that want to establish vaccine manufacturing factories, how many have actually thought about where to get the drug substance and other things associated with it? The long-term sustainability of such enterprise, how long have that, how have that been assured? So the point I'm making here is that, first of all, apart from just admitting that vaccine manufacturing is a complex process, there is need for realistic appraisal. This is not to scare anybody. For so many years, we've been advocating for local vaccine manufacturing in Africa. But the reality still stays that it's important to have that internal discussion by realistically appraising the feasibility of that venture and making informed decisions. And then once it has been decided that the country or the entity wants to go forward, to make firm, unqualified commitment to follow through. Because this will ensure that once commitment to proceed has been made, the chances of success will improve. It also means that governments will be willing to make available all the required resources, as well as the enabling environment to make it succeed, because this has been thought through and all the questions, the risks have been assessed. Right now, I don't know how many of these countries have actually assessed the risk involved in the venture they are undertaking. Remember, we are discussing the practical aspects now, not the theory, not what can be, but we're looking at the practical components. Also, such unqualified commitment based on informed decision will reassure investors of the stability of the operating environment necessary to recoup their investments. This is especially important in Africa, where we have a setting which is full of political instability and policy inconsistency. Investors will need to be reassured that if they invest, they will recoup their investment, because if a different government comes, it's not going to change what has been decided by the previous government. The next step is, one, accepting the reality that the only way to overcome the several bottlenecks along the road to realizing the dream of local vaccine manufacture in Africa is through effective collaboration. Now, this is one is accepting the reality that there is need to collaborate if we must succeed. Again, referring back to the complexity of the process, the challenges, all the weak capacities that we have in Africa across the entire value chain of vaccine manufacturing process. Collaboration is very, very important. Then second one is that beyond just assenting that there is need for effective collaboration, actually implementing this effective collaboration. Now, effective collaboration, let me define it by saying this is a type of collaboration where every member of that collaboration brings something to the table. There is added value by everybody. This type of collaboration will facilitate innovation and improve the chances of effective knowledge and technology transfer. It will reduce the risk of duplication of activities and unhealthy competition among the various actors. It will create synergy and facilitate optimal resource utilization. It could also help to address the requirement for consistent supply of various components needed for vaccine manufacture. Like I made in my previous, the first point I made. There are many, it's not just enough to build the facility. It's not just enough to get assurance for the product. Then long-term sustainability of any factory is very important, and effective collaboration could help address that issue. And then it will also promote collective bargaining with established vaccine manufacturers. I will expand on this later in my in my discussion. The other parts, like the moderator when Kitty was talking, she talked about other countries that are not manufacturing, that will not be manufacturing vaccines. What role will they play? So the role this book can play, which is also going to help in viability of any vaccine manufacturing venture, is creating relevance for those non-vaccine manufacturing countries by creating a spider, what I prefer to call it a spider web of actors across the continent, with each actor having complementary role in the vaccine manufacturing process. For example, let's assume that Nigeria has a vaccine manufacturing plant which produces the finished product. The research and development can be cited in a country where you have a strong research facilities, research capacity. And the clinical trials can be done in other countries that don't have the vaccine manufacturing plants, but they have other things that can support clinical trials. Production of the media for the elaboration of the drug substance can be produced somewhere else and shipped to where it can be, where the factory is for the development of the drug substance. And then, of course, the development of excipients, API, and other things. So the point is that different countries have different capacities for producing different things along the value chain of the vaccine, production, from the R&D down. And this can be spread around the continent. And if this is done effectively, you discover that you have different countries contributing something, even though they don't have the actual plant that produces the finished product. Boeing and Airbus, this is kind of similar to what they do. They manufacture the parts in different parts of the world, in different parts of the country, and bring this together, finally in the plant where the assembly now takes place. Something similar can be done. That way, the countries that don't have the plant itself and the countries that have the plants can have co-ownership of the whole enterprise. And this will help to address the uncertainty about access to market, because the participating countries in the production process will now become co-owners of the vaccine, which will become an incentive for purchasing the vaccine. Because one of the major drawbacks is the access to the market. Already there are those who have established their presence in African market when it comes to vaccine. And new investors are worried. If we come to the market, if we invest in Africa, how are we going to ensure that we take a chunk of that market that is already where people are already existing? This type of spider web, setting up this type of spider of actors across the continent would actually help to address, because let's take a typical example, the pneumococcal vaccine that was tried in Gambia. Gambia doesn't have a pneumococcal vaccine manufacturing plants, but because the clinical trial was carried out there, the country claims co-ownership. They pride in the role they have played in ensuring that the pneumococcal vaccine was produced and licensed and so on. And one of the promises was that the Gambia will receive the pneumococcal vaccine. And as far as if you speak to an average Gambian, they have that trend. The same thing with hepatitis B vaccine. I'm sure Gambia was one of the first countries that adopted hepatitis B vaccine immunization of its children, because that was where the clinical trial took place. Similar things can happen across Africa, so that this issue of countries that have the manufacturing facility and countries that don't have, somehow everybody feels that they are contributing something to the place. Also, the economic value of the investment will be added incentives for participating countries to want to maintain these facilities. And then over time, some of these countries could actually decide to upgrade and strengthen the network, which will further strengthen the network. Another thing is the role of African governments. We talk about technology transfer. One way to assure technology transfer is ensuring that the production of the drug substance, as well as the other things required for producing vaccines, is carried out in Africa. So African governments should insist on siting of industries for producing various vaccine manufacturing components in Africa, rather than the current emphasis on fill and finish. Now, I'm not saying that fill and finish is not good. I mean, like we normally say, half a loaf is better than none. But then we should go beyond the fill and finish and begin to insist that the actual factory that manufacture these various components, these various products should be sited in Africa. That is it, because if they are sited in Africa, Africans will be employed to work in this, and knowledge transfer and technology transfer will occur. That is the easiest way. If African manufacturers want to do this from the scratch, it will be difficult. So if this is the only way you can guarantee the rapid and effective transfer. And then another thing that which is so far nothing has been said much is there is need, because we are talking about practical steps, there is need for comprehensive and honest discussions with entities like Gavi, UNICEF, and other parties that are already operating in the African vaccine market. We believe that once local vaccine manufacturing takes off, it will be an easy ride. But there are people already there. And this is not going to be an African alone affair. There is need to begin now to have this honest discussion. Some of these discussions will be uncomfortable, but there's need to have that discussion, agree on common grounds. What will happen to those already providing vaccine to Africa? How will they relate to the new reality of African factories manufacturing their own vaccines? This discussion must be here. Right now, we are pushing it to the background, believing that there will be a time for, no, the time to have this discussion is now, because if it is not had now, there's going to be a lot of problems and the frustration of the manufacturers will make the enterprise collapse. And then, of course, funding is a major challenge. And this funding, I believe there are many African entrepreneurs that have the money. We have to begin to look beyond funding from outside Africa to see how African entrepreneurs and philanthropists can begin to invest in vaccine manufacturing in Africa. One way to do this, I know my time is almost up. One way to do this is education. What we are doing, what we've been doing so far has been sensitization of Africans, African manufacturers. We have not started educating potential African vaccine manufacturers. That education needs to take place for us to really understand the reality of what we are into, and for us to be able to lay a solid foundation for a viable vaccine manufacturing network in Africa. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chidi.